The Monday, February 13th, 2023 regular meeting of the Paris City Council is hereby called to order at 5:30 p.m. For this meeting, there is a quorum of the City Council present. Mr. Gene Anderson will deliver the invocation, and Mr. Councilman Pilgrim will lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
May we pray? Heavenly Father, as always, we thank you for your many blessings, for your watch care over us. We pray for our council tonight especially, that you'd guide and direct them as they conduct the city's business. And we pray, Father, for prosperity for our city, our state, and our country. And we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This.
Item number 4, the Citizens Forum. Persons desiring to address the council may limit their presentation to more than 2 minutes. Unless an item is posted on the agenda, the Texas Open Meetings Act prohibits the council from responding to any comments other than to refer the matter to a future agenda, to an existing policy, or to staff person with a special factual information. Claims against the council, council members, or employees, as well as individual person appeals, are not appropriate for the Citizens Forum. If necessary, the City Council may convene into executive session under Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code regarding any item on the agenda. The public forum is now open. If there is anyone who wishes to address the council, please state your name and address for the record.
First, I want to give y'all one of your little letters. Y'all can throw it in the trash if you want to. So at least I went and wrote it for you. Thank you. Where's our mayor at?
She's sick today.
Sick. Pray for her. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't bring it up for everybody. It's okay. You have one.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Walker.
Well, I'm Don Walker. I live at Brookston, Texas, 75421.
Thank you.
Lived there a long time. I want to recommend that the fire department does a wonderful job. All of the people on the fire department do a great job. The police department also does a wonderful job. And there are people out there trying to help those that's out on the streets. Now, I've never been a police officer. I've never been a sheriff. I've never been a Texas Ranger or any of the other things that you could be. But I have dedicated my life to helping the police department, the sheriff's department, pardons and paroles. And anytime they've wanted someone to come into our shelter, we accepted them. I don't know if that's important to y'all or not, but it's something that I did for 40 years. 40 years. That's not 10 years. That's 40 years. 40 years I've tried to help my city. Keep these people that are, I call them nuts sometimes, off of the streets. And I think we've done a pretty good job at it. I had a fire some time ago at a place, and I'm going to tell you that your fellows, your code enforcement officers, and your fire department, even though I can recommend them because they're doing their job, and they're doing their job the way they're supposed to be doing, except they don't understand that people's got feelings and they get hurt. And I want y'all, every one of y'all, to know that I love you. I even love these guys over here. I love every one of y'all.
Mr. Walker, your 2 minutes is up, sir. I'll give you a couple more minutes to speak if you choose to.
Thank you.
Next is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Okay, the citizens forum is now closed. The consent agenda, items on the consent agenda are approved by the single action of the council, which some approve applicable to all items appearing on the consent agenda. A council member may request any items to remove from the consent agenda and consider as a separate item. Does any member wish to remove any item from the consent agenda?
Mayor Pro Tem, I don't wish to remove anything. I just have a couple of comments about a couple items on the consent agenda.
Okay.
Okay. Number 7, about the change order for the Love Civic Center restoration project. Wow. How often do we ever have a contract reduced in a scenario like this? And I think that it just goes, we should mention that it's probably because of the wonderful leadership in the project between the state and the Chamber of Commerce. So I think that having a contract reduced is unique and something I haven't seen in quite a while. So I just wanted to make those comments and congratulate those that are in the management of that project. Good job, good job. And then the other thing that I wanted to comment about, and this is not to speak against this particular item, but I think it's important that when we're going to be waiving penalties on property, that they appear not on the consent agenda, but on the regular agenda, so that we can talk about it and acknowledge it. And but that's the only other thing. That was probably more of a housekeeping issue that I could have talked about personally about. But I just think that in the interest of transparency, that we could put that maybe on the regular agenda, not the consent agenda. But other than that, I have no other comments, and would make the motion to approve the consent agenda. Are you ready for that?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Okay. Item number 14, discuss and award a bid in the amount of $72,225 to Adams Lawn Service to mow 89.39 acres and award a bid in the amount of $14,060 to Greens Lawn Service to mow 12.2 acres. Staff, you have a presentation, please.
Mayor Pro Tem, Council. The City of Paris Public Works Department sent out requests for bids for ground maintenance per property. This contract mowing of the City of Paris parks, bidding was conducted on an individual park basis, so it allows us to take the best price per park, giving us the best price overall with the most land being mowed under our limited budget. The city received sealed bids for grounds maintenance on February 1st, 2023, and would like to award the bids accordingly. The contract period is February 14th through December 31st of 2023. Per budget limitations and based on the bids received, 101.41 acres are recommended to contractors, leaving 83.29 acres for the Parks Department to mow. We will also be mowing another 88.13 acres of land that were not included in the bid site due to the size, location, etc., leaving a total of 171.42 acres for the Parks Department to maintain. The bid tabulation sheet, which is attached, shows the parks are highlighted in yellow to be awarded to the contractor. This year, we will see the most acreage mowed under the contract in the recent years, which will free up the Parks Departments for further maintain those parks assigned to them as well as other duties. The Parks Department is budgeted for $90,000. We're requesting award the total for $86,285. We would like to set aside the remaining difference for unexpected expenses necessary in mowing in the contracted parks. Our recommendation is award one bid for 21 properties for a total of 89.39 acres to Adam Lawn Service in the amount of $72,225, and one bid for 7 properties for a total of 12.02 acres to Green Lawn Service in the amount of $14,060 as indicated on the attached bid tabs. And I have Mr. Low Ranger, the Park Superintendent, here to answer any questions as well, if I can't answer them.
Council, is there any discussion? I'll hear a motion.
I'll move to approve the agenda item 14 as presented.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries 4-0.
And on that item right there, so we will bring back the contracts at the next meeting. So,
Item number 15, discuss and act on an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 2.10, Division 2, Section 2.10.033 regarding peace officers T-code certification pay, amending a new Section 2.10.034 thereto regarding lateral seniority pay, providing a repealer clause and severability clause, a savings clause, and providing an effective date. Staff, their presentation.
yes, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council, I'm going to address items 15, 16, 17 at the same time. We'll have to vote on each one individually, but they all goes together. We just have separate ordinances and resolutions to pass in all this. We also have Chief Police Richard Salter here tonight with me, so I'll do the primary presentation, and he'll be here to follow up with some additional information and questions and answers with that. So I've given you a detailed agenda memo. I'm trying not to cover it all, but this is an important item, so I do want to cover it for the public who's listening in on this. For several years, we've struggled to maintain our staffing as a police department. There's a lot of national and local factors that play into that. We all watch the news. We see abroad how difficult it is to find qualified officers and how difficult it is to retain those officers across the nation and here in Paris. We have constant efforts of trying to advertise, trying to enlist individuals. We've done nationwide in many instances. We've done a great job of trying to touch people to bring them here and everything, but unfortunately there's a lot of pull in other places. We're not the only ones needing officers, and so with that we are currently down 17 officers, 18 as of today. We're losing another one that we learned today, and so that's almost 50% of our frontline force is down right now, so a significant impact of that. Now with that, we are managing minimum shifts. We are managing that, but we cannot continue to lose officers at this rate. As I'll discuss later on, under civil service, which we're bounded, which impacts a lot of things that we do in police department, the speed at which we lose people is greatly faster than how fast we can get people back on board. So with this, we did do a pay study 2 years ago that has greatly helped to get us back more comparable. We have since learned that we have some pretty tough local competition we need to be looking at. We've lost a fair number of officers to this local competition, the sheriff office, ISDs, and other places. We've lost a few who have just left the field in general, but a lot of our losses the last couple of years have been to local competition there. So with that, we did some analysis off of our local competition, did a hard look at our compensation ranges. Ultimately, what it comes down to is compensation. That's what we have to look at today. With that, like I said, we've done numerous attempts to recruit and hire. We give tests every 3 months. So we've done 4 tests last year, as it's the timing it takes in order to advertise and get tests going there. But we have just frankly not been able to get the numbers we need in those testing there. So we do feel there's some urgency in this request. We know that we've already passed a budget with this, but we do have available funds. Given we have vacancies in the department, we have funds in order to account for these changes here. So with this, working with Chief Salter, Assistant Chief Tuttle, and Sandy Collier, our HR Civil Service Director, we've come up with 4 changes which we feel are aggressive and we feel will help move this needle, which we hope will move the needle here. These changes here are designed to, 1, try to attract both local and afar candidates. We recognize there are a lot of people who are leaving the force in those big metro communities. Look at Paris, come here. So we're trying to do that. And as well as these changes here are meant to also try to retain our existing officers. We need to draw people in and keep them once they're here. So with this, the 4 changes we have tonight that you have in these 3 agenda items here is the first one is to authorize lateral seniority pay, such that when an applicant is hired who is certified and has previous years of experience as an officer with another department, once the probationary period is complete, they would be placed on an appropriate seniority level that aligns with their previous years of experience. Right now, when an officer comes on board with us, whether they are brand new, never been an officer before, or 14 years, they start at level 0. And that typically is a pay cut when they're going from another department to us. And so what we're proposing here, we want to advertise is lateral seniority movement. So if you have 8 years of service in another department and you come here, you pass probationary period, you then go to the eight-year level. And so we do this commonly in other departments, non-civil service departments. When we see a talented individual, we recognize sometimes we have to start at a little higher than step one in order to attract and keep them here. So we want to do the same thing with the police department. Item number 2 we have tonight to recommend is that we want to authorize. We currently have a sign-on bonus of $5,000 for certified officers. That has not done enough to move the needle for us. So we want to change it to $10,000 and include it for anyone to become an officer, whether you're certified or not. Obviously, this has there'll be a clawback agreement attached to this. If you leave us within the first I can't remember if it's a year or so, first year, you have to pay part of that back, and then also too we don't pay it all up front. It's paid in chunks. And that way, in case they do leave, we've not paid it all out. But again, a $10,000 sign-on bonus paid out over the course of a year for people to become an officer for the Paris PD. Third, in order to try to attract candidates from afar, the Illinois, the South Texases, the Nebraskas, wherever they are, we'd like to offer up to $1,000 moving expense in order to try to pay for some of those costs. I know from experience that it's expensive to move, and I know Chief Salter has spoken to literally hundreds of candidates. I know at one point he talked to over 500 candidates, and one of the prior tests, he was emailing each one of those people and trying to get them to follow through in the testing there. A lot of people, it just ended up coming down to too far. I can't afford it. So we want to offer up to $1,000 expense. We have a policy right now that for Paris officers, you have to live within an hour of work. So those who live outside of an hour, we offer willing to pay up to $1,000 reimbursement to move within an hour of the Paris PD. The fourth one, this one is designed typically to try to retain our officers, is to increase certification pay. In the state of Texas, I'm sure it's similar in other states, every officer has a basic certification level to be an officer. Then you, through training, through experience, through skills, the things you go through, you can then move into an intermediate level, then into an advanced level, and then finally a master level. We currently have 15 basics, 1 intermediate, 7 advanced, and 18 master levels in our department as is right now. Again, under Civil Service Code, and typically in Texas, cities will compensate people for that added skill set. And so if you move to an advanced or intermediate or master, we will give you a additional certification pay added to your biweekly paycheck for that. We currently don't pay anything for basic. But again, in our dire situation as we have right now, and again, keeping step with local competition, the sheriff office just started a basic certification pay as well as moving up their intermediate, advanced, or master levels. We'd like to also recommend that we move up our levels as well as add a basic certification pay. Right now, we pay $0 for basic, $62 for intermediate, $87 for advanced, $110 for master. I'd like to propose tonight we do $125, $150, $175, and $200 for those levels there. That gives us more in step with our local competition as well as what we saw from some other communities as well. Again, we're trying to attract those new officers, maybe younger officers, and keep them in those first few critical years. We're seeing a lot of officers coming on board, going through our training, learning to be a PPD officer, and then after 12, 18 months, leave us for another job who pays a little bit more. We want to try to make that decision hard financially to leave us. If they leave us for another reason, okay, but we don't want financial to be a reason we lose people. And that's really what it comes down to right now, is losing officers for pay. Some more information here. So that's our four requests tonight. Some more information I have in your packet here. We've had 4 tests since January 2022. I have a table there. We had 6 tests on February 8th, 3 on May 25th, 14 on September 13th, and 9 on January 10th of this year. Only 2 made it out of those tests. So that is a small percentage of those testing, let alone those who even spoke interest, who just didn't show up to the test. Very few of those actually have made it to be a Paris Police Department officer. And of that, Last year alone, we had 10 leave us last year. We've hired 6 in that period. We had 4 in January last year, but we've only had 2 since last January. So we are in a major drought right now. So trying to bring officers here. So with this, I'd like to also just cover real quick, help people understand the timing here. This isn't just a quick and simple advertise and get them a badge and get them a car and get them going here. There's a process here. Under civil service and under Texas code and so forth, to be a Paris police officer here, there is, of course, a 2 to 3 month advertisement process to advertise for a test. A 2 to 3 month process involved with testing, psychological, background, interviews, everything like that. 6 months in the academy, unless they're already certified. And then a 3 month process, an FTO program after that, to get them into a car with another experienced officer, driving around with someone there to learn the ropes and our policies there. That's a 7 to 15 month process just to fill a vacancy. I can lose someone in 2 weeks. It takes me 7 to 15 months to fill that position right there. So every people I'm like losing one today, we need to start something now to start to fill those gaps there. Now these changes here are designed to, 1, attract more candidates to take our test, 2, attract existing certified candidates, 3, attract candidates from afar to move to Paris, and 4, retain our existing officers and candidates once they get hired on and get past those first few critical years there. And we do feel that these changes here will definitely make a big stab at trying to address that. Now, it's going to take time. You don't just hire 17 tomorrow. It's going to take some time. We have another test coming in another month or 2. We want to get this information. If we approve it tonight, we want to get this information out there quickly so people can see that. Now, with this does come with a budgetary item with this. For lateral seniority pay, obviously, we would be going from hiring someone at level 0 to now level 6, level 8, whatever their years of service are. But with that, by hiring a certified officer, we're avoiding academy expenses and time spent with that. So there's offset by some of those costs there. And I give more information in my agenda here, but we're also trying to offset burnout, overtime, everything like that, trying to bring in some certified officers. Sign-on bonus, again, adding another $5,000 on top of our current $5,000. You do the math with that. It's about $85,000 there. If we were to hire 17 out of that, we're not going to hire them all next month. It's going to be spread out over the next year or 2 potentially, so that's over several budgets there. That's a one-time expense. We feel that's a drop in the bucket compared to the overall budget and needs of the department there. Moving expenses, $1,000 up to 1,000 times 17. Again, small expense. If that's what helps draw people in, I think that's a small expense to pay. Again, over a matter of a couple years, given the timing it takes to bring people on board. And lastly, certification pay. This is more the immediate, because this would apply to our existing officers. This is an approximate $120,000 added to the budget paid out for these positions here. But again, we're trying to counteract leaving, burnout, other issues with this process here, trying to draw in more officers for the additional pay there. And so, but with that too, we have a number of vacancies as it is, so we are very confident that our budget this year can absorb this cost in the remainder of this fiscal year. And I'm confident that we can mold the next year's budget to fit this in for next year. Most importantly, though, I know these are high expense items, but the cost to our community by having 17, 18, 19 vacancies, if not more, as we go along, that becomes a factor as well. So I've covered a lot here, but these are our 4 recommendations to help, I think, make a big impact to address our vacancies and bring officers to Paris. I'll entertain any questions you have about this, and Chief Salter is also here. Chief, do you have anything you want to follow up with, talk about, or? Yeah, go ahead and come to the microphone if you could, yeah.
Council, Mayor Pro Tem, thank you. I just want to let y'all know we've taken this very seriously. We've been innovative, and not just, we know where we're at. I've been here almost a couple of years now, and I've seen the pattern. I've seen we're getting now about, at best, 15 people to take the test. Out of that, there's a 85% washout rate. We might get 2 to 3 applicants out of that. And following up what Mr. Pat said, and recently, okay, this happened recently, we send 2 to the academy. We invest $20,000, not including their salary, into putting them through the academy. They come out. We are the only agency in this region that trains, that sends people and funds their training. We've got, as soon as they get back out of the academy, they come here, we've got departments that are also shorthanded that are recruiting them. They're recruiting them for less work and almost equal pay. Or if they go to the school district, they're working 180 days a year. They're not dealing with some of the things that our officers are dealing with on the street. The danger's not there. And so we're training, we will always be training all of the law enforcement in this region. We know that, we've accepted that. But we have to just push more people through. We have to push more people through. And recruiting people outside the area, I spoke to lots of people outside the area. The first question they said, can you cover my moving expenses? And while that $1,000 won't cover a moving expense, that $10,000 signing bonus will. And so they can use that money how they need to, but I think that will help us draw some people in. Now, Dallas, and I know this based on a class I was in Denton. It was an academy, and I spoke to the people there, and this is nationwide. There's a nationwide law enforcement shortage. And if you guys have ever worked in New York or know New Yorkers, New York is the center of the universe. They had 3 10-year New York City officers in this class. So these cities, Portland, Seattle, New York, their officers are leaving those departments. They're coming to the big cities in Texas. Texas is attractive. Even with that, Dallas is 550 officers down. Austin PD is 220 officers down. Our guys, our officers here, if they wanted to go be a police officer and make a lot more money, the world's theirs. They can go to Dallas, they can go to these high-paid departments, but they don't want to leave. They don't want to leave our region. They want to stay here where they grew up, where their parents live, and increasing, putting a little gap between us and our competition will help us keep them in our department. Because we're losing these guys between 1 and 5 years. And so increasing their certificate pay and opening up this basic certificate pay will, those 1 year, you have to have 1 year in before you get your basic certificate. But by the time they're trained, they've got their 1 year in. And so I think that this is a good plan. I know it's aggressive, but I think it's a good plan. And we'll know if it doesn't work. And if something doesn't work, we back up and we try something else. One more thing. It's not all about money, right? So we know it's going to be a long time before we get our staffing levels get back where they need to be. So what we've done is, if we're trying to reduce the call load on the officers, and we can do that by, we've identified about 15 calls for service that really does not require a uniformed officer to respond to. So what we've done is we've created because we have so much shortage, we have extra money, we've created a telephone reporting unit. We've hired one retired police officer, detective, and we've opened it up to some civilians and former police officers. Of course, they're better because they already know the job. But they can work as civilian call takers inside the police department to handle these 15 categories of calls. And that's calls that the police officers don't have to respond to. So that'll lessen their call load on the street. They can concentrate on more things rather than going and taking a report on a bicycle that we're never going to see again. It's a purple Huffy, and no serial numbers, nothing like that. But that takes an officer 45 minutes off the street to take that report. We can do that in-house at the police department, and we won't have to call officers off the street for walk-ins, people that are walking in. We've started that. That was started last week. We're setting it up. We're establishing the policies, and then we'll continue to staff it. The other thing we're going to do is buy into an online reporting system that interfaces with what we already have. And what we'll do is we'll have to socialize this with the public, but anybody that wants to self-report a crime, they can do it online. It's very, very simple. We've had the demonstration of it. The way the system walks you through the questioning, if it ends up being they answer a question, well, hey, this is not a crime, it'll tell them this is not a crime. Go this way or go this way. And then at that point in time, our call takers will then become reviewers of those reports, call people back. But over time, as people get used to doing that, it'll reduce the call loads on the street, because we know we're going to be short for a long time. It's a nationwide problem. It's not just us. Like Mr. Path said, our competition is local, and we've learned that the hard way. And that's all I have.
Of course, I have questions.
Yep.
So you're thinking that people are leaving our department and going to our competition, our local competition, because of pay?
Yes, pay. It went well, not necessarily.
And I realize, I don't mean to speak in totality, but I mean.
Well, it's not just pay. So let me give you a scenario. If you get a police officer here, it's usually your 1 to 5 year police officer, and he's working 12-hour shifts, and now he's also being called in on one of his days off to cover somebody else's shift, and then you've got the county that has a third of the call load we have, or the school district that says, hey, you can come over here and work for us. Be at school with your kids, work 180 days a year, and let kids in and out of cars for almost the same money. So, I mean, that's pretty attractive for the guys. And what kept police officers in Paris from going to these other departments in the past was we always had a nice little cushion of a pay gap between us and them. And that gap is just closed. Even with the raise that you guys granted us a couple years ago, that cushion's gone.
Well, the only reason I was asking that was because we have a little stipulation in here that it's only given to those who have never been a Paris PD officer before. So if we're short and we've raised our prices up, we're short on staff, and we've raised our pay up to a more attractive thing, why wouldn't we want to see if we can't recruit some of our former officers back?
Part of the issue with that is we're trying to deter from leaving, coming back to get that bonus. And so that has come up in that's the 3 years that I've been here.
Okay.
And so we've had individuals who left us and then within 12 months want to come back, and then they came back, where's the sign-on bonus?
Gotcha.
Sorry, so.
The other question I had was regarding the sign-in bonus, which I'm all for. I think this is a great, I'm all about being proactive rather than reactive, but $10,000 sign-in bonus. So let's say somebody joins our force and we send them to an academy and we send them on to be trained and everything, which takes anywhere from 15 to 17 months. And all the time they're getting this sign-on bonus. And what happens at the end of academy if they decide this isn't really for me and they get their $10,000, they've already spent their $10,000 sign-on bonus because they've been at the academy for 15 to 17 months, or being trained for 15 to 17 months. Yes. I mean, I kind of think that the time needs to be a little more extended to like a couple of years maybe for that $10,000 bonus. I mean, I'd like to see something, I'd like to see an officer come and be a part of our community and be a part of our department for longer than a couple of years.
We verified, Stephanie, you could speak to that real quick.
It's if they leave before the 3rd anniversary of the initial hire date.
Oh, okay,
is
so-
the period of time that they would, if they leave before that, they would have to pay it back.
Gotcha. That
Those
sounds
contracts
perfectly
they
fair.
sign before they get a dime.
Okay. I kind of
provides
looked
that.
at that. I did not see that here, but that's just probably because I read too fast, and that's perfectly fine. I
And-
think this is a great plan. I love the incentives as far as increasing certification. I think that's great. I really think that's really
Thank you.
probably the most impressive part about all this, I think.
I think we'll see benefits from it.
Chief, I had a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
I've had a lot of constituents reach out to me and have had this discussion, and I will tell you before I ask a couple questions here, they've all been in favor. They've been supportive of the Paris Police Department, and I am also in support of our police department. And I want to thank you guys. If we didn't have the police department, we'd be in a world of hurt, and we'd be it'd be tyrannical. So we're blessed to have you guys. A couple questions I have. Some of these trainings and certifications, can you explain a little bit of what that may pertain to? I mean, are we talking about further de-escalation training, further active shooter training, things of this nature, I really want to make sure and hone in on that. That was a question I got from a constituent, so I'll go with that first, and then I'll go on to the next question.
Okay, good question. So our training, minimum training standards are administered by Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. And they're pretty strict across the country, and we have to meet those minimum training guidelines. Now, with respect to de-escalation training, the state requires every 4 years to have what they call limited use force and public interaction. That's what they call. That's what they title it. They require minimum every 4 years. Officers have to redo that. Our policy requires 2 years.
Great.
So we've doubled that or cut that in half, 2 years. And then we've got, on top of that, and these other trainings that also fall in line with that. One's called Civilian Interaction Training Program, Cultural Diversity, Crisis Intervention 1 and 2. And I went to one of those 40-hour classes, really, really impressive class. It was a 40-hour class, and if you miss, if you can't come in there and miss 3 hours, you won't get credit. You have to retake the class. So they're very strict. TCO's very strict and holds us to the line. And so the training is very good, and we stay on top of our training.
Well, I definitely looked through this, and I'm pretty impressed along with Councilwoman Knox here regarding the certification, the training. I mean, we really need to incentivize that. I think that's a major plus. I will also say, in every field right now, there's a shortage of employment. There's a shortage based off of competition. It's rough. You even talk about things such as traveling nurses. It's unbelievable. So I commend you on this move. At first when I was reading it, I said, man, that's quite a bit. But then I started thinking about it and started doing the math, and I get where you're coming up with the numbers, and I appreciate that. One thing I will ask is, I'm fine with all the numbers, I'm fine with all the incentives. The one incentive that I would really like to look into is to see if we can get officers to invest in our community in regards to finding a home here. In that would be an additional thing, not necessarily taking anything away from what you guys have proposed this evening, but let's maybe research and find some way to get them to hone in these potential, men and women to serve our community, but also to live here. That's huge. And I know we've looked at, a little bit longer distances. That's fine. But, we really would love to see our officers be well rooted within our community, have homes here in Paris, serve Paris, and fully integrate within our community. So happy to look into that further if you'd like, or maybe.
Absolutely.
Maybe,
listen, we have our strategy in that point that we've already looked at. Is to go towards the people cycling out of the military. Because a lot of those guys have already trained, they already understand discipline. A lot of them are former military police that have done one tour. And so this last cycle of testing, I reached out to different bases. And then so we'll dig a little deeper this next time. But they put our advertisement on some military exchange sites that people that are cycling out of the military had access to. They didn't have time to get us rolled into their real program, so the guy did put us on their site. So that, although we didn't get a response that I was looking for. So we're just going to have to look harder and dig deeper there, because I know there's a resource there, and every department in the state is doing the same thing.
But I think to address your point, I think, yes, we can definitely look at maybe an additional incentive to move within Paris, potentially. Is that what you're kind of thinking
absolutely.
about?
Oh, absolutely.
Or, I mean,
Because it will ultimately take an incentive. We won't be able to require people to live within
Sure.
Paris, but we can maybe incentivize them to if you live in Paris, we'll give you an additional something. So
Yeah, I mean, even heck, I'll even go as far as to say if they have young kids, they need school tours. I'm sure anyone on council would be happy to give them tours, do whatever we can to support these people to come in and keep our streets safe, keep our individual citizens safe,
Yeah.
and make sure that we're good. I mean, seeing these numbers really alarm me, and I would really like to see more investment, but I know it's hard. I mean, like you said, every city's kind of going through this.
And it's selling the city too, so especially outside our region. And this next cycle, we're going to put a packet together. I was waiting for these to see what the outcome was tonight, and we're going to actually put a recruitment package out and get it out to the colleges and the universities. And our competition's nationwide.
Yeah.
So it's just, we're going to have to find those special people that want to live in a rural town, and they're out there.
Yeah.
You know, they're out there. Coming from the big cities, they're moving to the big cities here. But, you know, we've also discussed one more other option we're going to look into about maybe getting some retired officers. We'd have to change our age, our hiring age. But
Well, and sometimes that brings good experience.
Mm-hmm.
We need
good
that.
mix, absolutely.
We
Yes, sir.
really need that, so.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time.
Is there any other questions for Chief Salter?
Thank
Okay,
you.
we're gonna have to discuss and vote on these items separately. So starting with item 15, is there any more discussion? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed, say no. Motion carries 4-0. Item number 16, is there any discussion?
I don't think we've not read the item just yet. If you're going to read the item for number 16.
Okay, I'll do that. Okay, item number 16, discuss and act on a resolution authorizing the Paris Police Department to pay a hiring incentive of $10,000 to newly hired Paris police officers, making other findings and provisions related to the subject, and providing an effective date. So staff, we've already discussed that, so is there any discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries 4-0. Item number 17, discuss and act on a resolution authorizing Paris Police Department to pay a relocation expensive incentive of $1,000 to newly hired Paris police officers who live further than 1 hour from the Paris Police Department, making other findings and provisions related to the subject, and providing an effective date. So is there discussion?
No, sir, I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item number 18, convening into executive session pursuant to A, Section 551.072 of the Texas Government Code to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. B, Section 551.087 of the Texas Government Code, 1, to discuss the deliberate regarding commercial or finding information that the government body has received from a business prospect that the government body seeks to have relocate, stay, or expand in or near the territory of the government body and with which the government body is conducting economic development negotiations, or 2, to deliberate the offer of financial or other incentives to business prospect government described by Subdivision 1 as follows. Project Clydesdale. The time is 6:12 p.m. City Council is convening executive session. It's 6:33 PM and the city council is now in open session. No action needed to be taken. Item number 20, consider and approve future events for the city council and/or city staff pursuant to resolution number 2004-081. Is there any? Item number 21, make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.